This is how to diagnose a bad starter on a Nissan hardbody. I'm mainly making this video for my friend Ethan, but if you also have a hardbody, follow along at home. For context, this is a 1993 KA24 Nissan hardbody. It's two-wheel drive, and this is the automatic version with factory overdrive and remote start and stuff. And I know for a fact that this is the original starter from the factory, so I'll show you how to diagnose a bad starter and how to take it out. As far as putting a new one back in, that's for you to do, viewer at home. So step one, try and start your truck. Doesn't start. However, it is in the starting sequence. So hard bodies, when you go and start them, it does like a little diagnostic with all of your lights that can be lit up. And there is no check engine light on this truck. The battery is near brand new, and I know I have perfect oil pressure, so I know that those lights are wrong. And that's just what it does when it first starts up, because once the engine actually turns on, those lights turn off. But the engine isn't turning on. And you can hear that there's plenty of power coming from the ignition to everything to actually want it to start, but it's not starting. First things first, to diagnose this. This is the automatic version. If you are following at home with a manual transmission, you would obviously push the clutch to the floor and make sure that your clutch works and make sure that your neutral safety switch is good and all that stuff. But what we're gonna do is just kind of press on this a little bit, make sure it's actually in park. Nope, no good, no start. And just for good measure, I am going to put it in neutral and try and start it from neutral. Still nothing. So, leads me to believe it's a bad starter. But just to be fully thorough, let's check something else. Turn on your headlights. With your headlights turned on, you can see that they are super bright, which leads me to believe that it's not a bad alternator or a bad battery, it's a bad starter. The next step I would recommend doing to just be completely thorough is to remove your seat. This is how you diagnose your ECU right here. You can see that from the factory, mine has been marked. I'm going to turn the key on right now, and it's going to be in the armed position. Now, with a flathead screwdriver that I set down somewhere that now, of course, I can't find, we're going to put this in diagnostic mode. If your little dial here isn't marked, I would highly recommend marking it so you know where your engine speed is supposed to be. This will adjust your idle, kind of like how a carburetor, you can adjust the idle. Put our flathead in and go all the way over to diagnose. And then you put the key in the on position, and it will run through a sequence. So we'll go 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I think it goes to 5. And what that's doing is it's checking all the sensors, it's checking everything to see if there's any faulty codes or anything like that. But once it runs through the sequence of 1, 2, 3, or 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever, when it runs through that sequence, I don't know, once or twice, you're good to change it back to where it was. And leave the key still in the on position where you change it back to where it was. And then it should tell you if you have any codes. Alright, that's back where it was, and you can see that no lights are flashing at all, which means there are no codes. So, just like I said, the lights on the dashboard are just the starting sequence of the vehicle. So, if you go back here, you'll see it still doesn't start. And everything is the same, and nothing's changed on the dash, because there was no check engine light to begin with, and it's starting because of a mechanical failure that isn't sensor related. I just want to show you guys how easy it is to actually diagnose something. Now, if there was codes, you would record a video of the flashes and then look up the diagnostic manual either online or on the handbook that comes with the truck. Here is the next step. Your starter is down there. So we got to do a couple easy steps before we can get to the starter. This is a very simple job and very common on these. So first thing we want to do is disconnect the battery and just double check all these wires, make sure all these wires are good. I know they are, but we're trying to cover all bases. So I already moved the fuel filter out of the way. Now that our battery is disconnected, we're going to take off the air filter, which is a great time to clean that if it needs to be cleaned as well. This is fairly new, and I do have all this intake piping somewhere around here, but I just never run it because I don't care. And this little rubber gasket, guys. You got a bunch of clippy boys, just like that. And that lifts off. Our air filter looks fine. And then we have this little guy. Base plate of this can be a little bit of a pain because there's a 10mm right here that goes overlooked. So there is a electrical clip right here that unplugs. Don't forget to plug that back in. And there's a hose that goes to the bottom right there. And then there's a hose that goes to the back of your engine, but for this job we can just kind of push that aside. So for automatic transmissions, it's easier to put these in bottom side than it is top side. For manual transmissions, it's kind of easier to put them in top side. So we're going to unbolt this probably top side and then pull it out from the bottom. I decided to take my tire off just to give myself a little bit more room. You don't have to do this, but this is for my own sanity. For these, at least the lugs I'm running, 21mm, break them loose on the ground, then use the impact the rest of the way. So I have my ratchet in there, and I peeled back some of this dust cover right there, and you're able to get your hand in pretty easily, or you can do it from the bottom side. And there isn't a ton of room to actually ratchet this, but one helpful tip I'm going to do is just get this finger loose, and then try to get the top one, because if I remove that all the way, it's gonna like teeter it, and it'll be harder to get the top one out. This is probably gonna be kind of tough to see, but I got the top one as well. Both of them out. And you see what I was saying, that as soon as these get loose, it starts to come out. This is probably gonna be kind of tough to see, but I now have it loose. And right here, this rubber grommet is the wires. So we're gonna disconnect this clip right here. It's either a 10 or a 12mm. I think it's a 12. Take that off. One thing that's very important that's gonna be kind of hard to film, this little ring goes around your bottom 14mm for the starter. This is your ground. Make sure you put this back on when you put in your new starter, because you won't have a ground and it won't work without that. So that goes underneath the bolt, and then you just screw it down. But don't forget that. That's very important. What I think is easier to do is to kind of angle the starter downwards like this, so now you can get to this really easy. And I think it's a 12. It's kind of hard to untighten it because it is so tight in there, but with it facing down, you have some room to actually get it off, and it's a lot easier. Okay, that came off really easily, and now you start to wiggle it out. You can go top, you can go bottom, you can go through the side, whatever works best. There's micro differences between the years, so some might be easier going out in different directions. Also, if you have a manual transmission, this is a lot easier because there's a lot more room, because there's these lines right here that are not normally here if you have a manual, so that makes it a hell of a lot easier. Automatic is a little bit tougher, but not like super tough. I don't know if you can see, but what I did was I pulled it up and then sent the bottom down through here, and that works pretty well. Nice and easy. A little bit of a pain, but not too bad. Alright, so here it is, out of the truck, and as suspected, it is a factory Hitachi one. So this is one from the factory, and you can see it's quite worn and very, very ridiculously stiff. So as suspected, that is our problem. But we're gonna... It's also got a bunch of soot coming out of it, so I'm pretty confident that the motor is burned out, but we can test it. You would check a starter to see if it's good or not. This is your positive, this is your negative. We are going to attach some jumper cables to it. I have the positive and the negative connected, and in theory, if I touch the positive to the battery, it should spin. And it doesn't. because it's burnt out. Here it is, right there, proof that I am actually touching it. Yeah, so the motor inside here is burned out, if you didn't gather that by the soot coming out of where the motor is and how this is completely fried. So yeah, bad starter. This is the most common starter that they put in these. It's got this little shielding shell thing. So yeah. To replace this, you just follow the steps that I did in opposite order. Just a couple things to be noted when you reinstall it. So make sure that the teeth of the flywheel gear is lined up with the teeth of the starter, and you should be good. Okay, there you have it. If you found this tutorial helpful, give a like, give a subscribe, let me know what you think down in the comments below. And hopefully this truck is going on to a new home, to a awesome new owner, which is very exciting. This truck has been with me for some time now, and it's been a really great truck. I've loved my time with it, but I think it's time for it to go to a new home. So we'll see. Anyways, yeah, bye.